Hello everybody, hello friends, buddies, viewers, and the very few subscribers I have. Yeah, I've been a bit busy lately, which is why I haven't been uploading since the April Fool's special, but worry not, I'm back, and we are on Pokemon Showdown, but this is going to be sort of a different video today. I actually wanted to do Pokeball Live today, but yeah, I got on, but it was just kind of a mess. The sprites, the 3D models weren't showing up on the screen. The team builder wasn't working properly. I was having all sorts of pop-ups and just general technical issues. I might have to do another virus scan on my computer just to clean that out. But I've decided that I want to make just the general team building guide. This isn't going to be for any specific tier, or I'm not going to make very many distinctions between ladder play and tournament play here. This is just for the beginning competitive player. You know, you got your IVs, your EVs, your natures. You've learned about all that, but now it's time to get into the actual battling. And you know, I'm an administrator of Facebook groups online. Or on Facebook, and I'll see a lot of people post on some of my groups, on my current groups, former groups, you know, like just team building help. And you know, they'll know their technical stuff, but they won't really know what to do with a team. And I think the biggest misconception when it comes to team synergy is that you need to have type synergy, and that's not. Type diversity is definitely a factor to consider, but it might not be for all the reasons you think. We're gonna take an offensive team, like this one. And this is actually my Charizard X team, and when it comes to building offense teams like this, you mainly need Pokemon that can... You need to center your efforts around providing a sweep for a certain Pokemon, which means taking care of checks and counters that are relevant in that specific metagame. So here this team is built around Charizard X. So what are some common things that typically switch in the Charizard X, hoping to wall it? Well, let's see. A couple big ones that come to mind are Gyarados, Landorus T, and Tyranitar. So here we've got our buddy Thundurus, and I actually don't have a life orb on him. I'll fix that right now. Hidden Power Ice Thundurus takes care of all three. It takes care of Landorus. Hammer Arm can dent Tyranitar, definitely weaken it to the point where Charizard can finish it off. And it also has, of course, access to Thunderbolt for Gyarados. And since this particular Charizard doesn't run Earthquake, it'll also be walled by Heatran. So that's why I have this Keldeo here. And, you know, Keldeo is like the perfect switch-in to Heatran. It can pretty much spam any of its stab moves against it. And overall, it's just a great teammate to Charizard X. And, like, as you can see, there's not really... But you know, the thought process that goes into choosing teammates is not necessarily what type covers what in terms of defense. Like some of the things that Charizard X is weak against, you know, Rock, Ground, Dragon. As you can see, it's not really taken into account by offensive team members like Keldeo and Thundurus. Thundurus is weak to Rock. Keldeo doesn't resist Earthquake, and both don't resist Dragon. So that's just something to keep in mind. You don't need a team. You don't need an offensively based team that covers everything defensively. As you can see, on this team, there is no fairy resist to be found. I suppose Charizard in base form resists Dragon, but once it's Mega Evolved, there are no fairy resistances on this team. And there's two weaknesses. Yet the team's very successful because it has good offensive synergy, and it covers threats that are relevant to the metagame, and that's how the team members are chosen. Not specifically, oh, do my 6 Pokemon have resistances to every single type in the game? That's not really the right mindset to go into choosing team members for your Pokemon. You shouldn't let for example, you shouldn't let a rock weakness discourage you from using Thundurus with Charizard X, you know? Because they're very good offensively together. Or you shouldn't let a ground weakness keep you from using Bisharp on a team with Charizard X. Or, I suppose Bisharp is more of a Charizard Y team archetype because it removes Latios and Latias. So you have to think less. You almost have to narrow your scope a little bit to fit the metagame that you're playing. And obviously, for this team in particular, I'm referring to the X and Y OU metagame. But now we're going to shift gears here a little bit. Okay, I've been talking about offensive synergy up until now. So what about defensive synergy? How about a team that's a little bit more balanced? Well, this is a rain team that I built a while back. I was inspired by one of my RMTs on Smogon, in which someone recommended a core of Ferrothorn and Scizor. And some of you might be raising your eyebrows right now, going, wait. You're going to have 2 Pokemon with a ×4 resistance to fire have a defensive core together. Well, yeah, you pretty much heard it exactly right. And it actually works well because of the combination of, ironically, typing and move pool, and just the kind of role they play on the team. That's what makes them so good together, besides, despite sharing such a large weakness together. For example, Scizor is great at taking care of a lot of fighting type threats that Ferrothorn doesn't like to deal with, and it can knock off their Choice Band or their Assault Vest or whatever, and proceed to use Default for free and just roost off damage. And also, Bullet Punch is also really good for just getting consistent damage on everything. And this is actually, this is actually a Mega Scizor, and that's why it's physically bulky, because Mega Scizor has pretty spectacular physical bulk. I think it's more than Skarmory, I think. So you basically have in Scizor, you have this offensively potent wall with Defog and Knockoff, and the only thing it misses out on that Skarmory does have is the entry hazards, but it's kind of insignificant on this team when it's paired up with Ferrothorn, who can roll about the same thing and provide entry hazards and Leech Seed, Power Whip to take care of bulky waters that Scizor doesn't like to really deal with. And the fact that what makes this course so good is that they check a lot of common things together, and together they provide checks for a lot of the offensively based threats in the meta that often require more than one counter. So that way, if your Ferrothorn has fainted, you're not completely screwed if something like, I don't know, Garchomp comes in on your team, you know? You've still got your Scizor as the backup. You know, if you lose your Scizor and some, I don't know, Calm Mind Sylveon comes in to wreck house on your team, well, no worries, you still have Ferrothorn. It's just, perhaps Sylveon wasn't the best example, but it's threats like those. Thundurus is another great example of a Pokemon that might need multiple checks in order to keep her from completely stomping on your team, you know? It's like having multiple flying type resists, on a team in order to keep Mega Pinsir from destroying you if you somehow lose your Rotom W. You know, a lot of these offensively built teams are based around the concept that you're gonna bring 2 Pokemon of similar type and role in order to weaken the opponent's checks to them, and then bring in the offensive Pokemon's partner to clean up once the checks are weakened. Like, I know Staraptor Talonflame is a really potent flying spam core just because Staraptor or Talonflame can wear down each other's walls. Like, so Staraptor doesn't really care at that point with that team archetype if you bring in something like Rotom W. He's going to use Brave Bird, and he'll probably be Choice Banded, and he'll take off a clean 40 50% of your health. I don't even know how much it takes off of physically defensive Roto. I know I've seen it do like upwards of 40% to a to a max HP Aegislash. And you know, that kind of thought is scary when they still have a whole team left that can wear down your flying check, either your Aegislash or your Roto W, and then that Talonflame just comes in. And you thought you were prepared for it, but now you suddenly don't know what to do. And ultimately, that's the kind of thing you have to keep in mind when building your team. And it's not all about, even though it has more so to do with the synergy and achieving a goal for that team. Those flying spam teams, as soon as they have your checks weakened, they've accomplished their goal. They can bring in that Staraptor, that Honchkrow, the Talonflame late game, and win. So yeah, that was my point. It works well because they have good offensive synergy together. And I suppose that's mostly for our beginning players who can get a little bit paranoid if they notice, oh, I have 3 electric weaknesses on this team. But at the same time, the team is so successful because it has because it has those same kind of those offensive type synergies. And I proved with this team in particular, and you know, you don't even have to run Rain to make this core work. I chose to run a Politoed alongside them, just to make it ease the prediction even more when it comes to using such a initially odd-looking defensive core like Mega Scizor and Ferrothorn, which is of course supported by the other bulky offensive Pokemon on this team. Like Assault-Dust Conkeldurr can certainly take a fire attack in the rain. So Dragonite can certainly take a fire type move in any weather, pretty much. So I know this whole spiel about team building and you know, this proving common mythos about it has been sort of speaking in very broad terms, and I haven't really gotten into a realm of practicality. So we're gonna do just that. We're gonna build a team. We're gonna have an offensive core and we're gonna have a defensive core, and I'm going to use the same mindset as before when going into building the team. So we're going to let's see. Let's have Mega Pinsir. And we're not actually going to build a set because this is just a sample team. But just assume the standard 252, you know, return, Earthquake, Swords Dance, Quick Attack. So what are some things that stop Mega Pinsir? First thing you think of is Rotom W, Skarmory, Aegislash. So what's a Pokemon that can set up on Aegislash? Pokemon that can set up on Skarmory. Pokemon that isn't threatened by Rotom Wash. Well, let's look here. Ferrothorn would actually be a pretty good Pokemon to pair up with Pinsir. And I mean, the first reaction a lot of inexperienced players will have is, oh, they share a fire type weaknesses. How does this work? How does that kind of how do these two Pokemon possibly synergize with each other? Well, the answer is simple. Ferrothorn's unique typing, despite sharing a fire weakness, takes care of a few key metagame threats that Pinsir has a tough time breaking through. Some more bulky Pokemon that come to mind are Tyranitar, Landorus T, you know, the same thing we discussed with Charizard X. Rotom Wash, we've already mentioned that one. Skarmory, and now Ferrothorn can't really do a lot to Skarmory offensively, but it can set up Leech Seed, it can set up Hazards, it can, I mean, I believe it can even use Thunder Wave on it, all while Skarmory does nothing to it. So Ferrothorn is a really great partner to Mega Pinsir. and you should be thinking in terms of metagame threats and what impedes a Pokemon to sweep rather than strict typing and stats, you know? Alright, so we have a weakness to fire-type Pokemon here. So, another good partner to make a pincer, in my opinion, is Keldeo. Specifically, the Choice Spec set. Typing comes in here too. They're both weak to flying. But is that going to keep you from using Keldeo as a momentum snatching wall breaker for Mega Pincer to come in on a team weakened by Choice Spec's Keldeo and just sweep with Quick Attack? That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So I think role in the team, such as, you know, wall breaker, supporting sweepers, that's a pretty that's sort of a basic battling 101 team concept for beginners. It's a good one to learn, and also learning your metagame threats and having Pokemon to support your sweepers. I think those two aspects of team building should come before any considerations of. I mean, you should consider typing. Obviously, you don't to an extent. Of course, you don't want 5 Pokemon weak to Fairy or something, but there is but it's not the end-all be-all. Try to change your competitive mindset, move it away from having a type be the end-all be-all of your team building, and think more into the aspect of the role each Pokemon plays in your party and what it contributes to checking top metagame threats and helping the offense on your team succeed, or the defense on your team succeed. If you want to play stall, if you want to have Pokemon spread status around and keep entry hazards on the field, then take a Pokemon that do the job with less regard to just strict typing and having the perfect type synergy, because you're not going to get much of anywhere there. Of course, it's more important defensively, but even then, I think that having utility Pokemon that can keep status on the field and keep hazards on the field, like taunt users. Tornadus T is a really powerful taunt user on stall teams and semi-stall teams that often gets overlooked because of its weaknesses as a flying type Pokemon. And a lot of times, the assumption that it won't do well because of these weaknesses is just not true. On a team that already has its philosophy ingrained on defense based on the role of the Pokemon, and I guess this is where type comes into play a little bit more, because it has to do with with resistances on defense teams. Like a very common stall core will be like fire, water, grass. But if you notice, some of the best fire, water, grass cores go beyond just the defensive type coverage of fire, water, grass, and go more into the individuality of the Pokemon. For example, a good Pokemon to use on stall is Heatran. You know, Heatran's not just a fire Pokemon. He doesn't just offer the resistances of a fire type. Of a fire type Pokemon. He's also a steel type. He gets Flash Fire. He has an expansive support move pool. He has great stats, and you know, let's see. You don't just choose any fire type Pokemon or any water type Pokemon to be part of a defense team. You have to select Pokemon that are best for the role to fit the metagame. Another Pokemon that has become really spectacular is Venusaur. With Venusaurite. It's not just a grass type. It's a grass. Now you become a defensive grass type with offensive potency and very few weaknesses. And like also Pokemon with reliable recovery and utility options have a lot to do with the team building process. You know, it answers this is a question I got a lot in 5th gen, like why do people use Vaporeon when you have Milotic sitting in underused? Well, it's because Vaporeon gets Wish, and it got the option to Pseudo Haze with Roar, while Milotic got the less reliable Dragon Tail. So I mean, even in terms of stats, sometimes the effectiveness of a Pokemon as a whole in concept overrides preconceptions that rely on simply base stats or typing, and that's more of what should go into your team building. And of course, the most important part is just testing what you have. Here I've got, obviously I don't want to use Venusaur. I don't think I'd want to use Venusaur with Mega Venusaur with Mega Pinsir. But say you've got, like here, we have the Keldeo with the Choice Specs paired up with Pinsir, the late game sweeper, and Ferrothorn, the entry hazard setter, and Mega Pinsir threat check. It's a core. If you already have your offensive core or defensive core right there, like I showed you earlier with the Mega Pinsir and the Ferrothorn, along with Assault Vest Conkeldurr. They all play roles that complement each other. And I think that sort of thinking in competitive play sometimes transcends the concept of just having good type synergy. And so the best way now that you're thinking like a competitive player in terms of roles and of metagame, the best thing you can do now is just test out what you've got built. Does it work? Is Keldeo a good hole puncher for Mega Pinsir to come through later? Does it tear holes into the walls that Mega Pinsir needs to break through in order to prevent being checked? These are all questions you have to ask yourself, and a lot of times experience is the only way to get that kind of knowledge. And experience on the simulators, experience with your other competitive friends, experience in tournaments, you know, VGC regionals. There's still some going on next week. SPL is rotating, I believe. And yeah, I hope you found this, I guess this philosophical crash course on competitive Pokemon team building. And I actually stumbled quite a bit in that video, so I'll have to edit all of that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I actually might give this this little core of ours, this little balance core that we pseudo made it. You might see it on the next Showdown Live or the next Poke Battle Live. Who knows? So I suppose I'm out for now. Goodbye.